All right, Joe, my man.
What up?
Welcome everybody to a special dad episode.
Damn it.
For uh, half a dozen people that saw one of my last episodes, or our last episode, uh, having my first kid, and it's going to be a boy. And thought about it, and I wanted to do, I had the idea of doing a dad episode. So talked to a few of my other guy friends, got any thoughts and tips that they had, and we're going to do it. So, Joe, what are some pieces, nuggets of advice that you noticed right off the bat when you both had both of your boys? Because I'm sure
Well,
they're both very much different.
oh yeah. I mean, they got totally different personalities. Um, I was always told boys are easier to raise than girls. I don't know because I have two boys. Um, you know, the biggest piece of advice I can give and that I've learned along the way is, you know, you can be your child's buddy, your son's buddy, but first and foremost, you got to be their parent. So it's you want to but who said it, right? I'm not trying to make light of a situation, but we're not trying to raise douchebags, right? I'm not saying no one is, but you just show the kid right and wrong, you know how to treat a lady. um make sure you instill standards and values and where they can you know grow, right? And as they get older, um you can let back a little bit, but then that wonderful thing called puberty comes in, and it's like, for example, like my son, he's 11, my oldest is 11. The change is starting to happen slowly. um and he be I love him to death. He's a smart kid, but he be having some dumb moments.
Don't we all? We don't really ever grow out of that.
um and it's just funny, right? I mean, as they learn, like, that's the best thing, is watching them learn, right? Especially my youngest, watching him learn. The oldest too, but it's cool when they realize something, like they put two and two together and it equals four.
Yeah,
Or
finally clicks
watching
on
them,
the head.
right? And there's no bigger reward than being a father, being a parent, right? But being a father, right? I mean, we're talking about dads here. Um, because we're bringing up this next generation. So we, you know, got to, teach them, like how I don't know if you were raised similar as I was raised. I know you came from an Italian family. Um, I did as well, not as Italian as yours, but definitely probably have similar values.
Yeah, for us, it was definitely and it goes for everybody in the states at least. You grew up in upstate New York, close to Canada.
You always got to
Um,
throw that in there.
yeah, just wanted to make sure everybody understood you know, geographics. And I was raised around the city, New York City, in Staten Island, and then I moved to Jersey. So even though it might be very similar geographically, very different too. And we weren't that far apart, a couple hours maybe.
Right, right. You know, every dad wants, they have their son, and they're like, he's gonna, you're gonna get the stereotypical, you might, like he's gonna be the big football star. He's gonna live out my dreams. Don't force your, if you had a dream and you didn't make it, don't force your your dream you didn't make onto your kids. Like, I mean, Caden loves to play football. He gives it his all, and I'm not knocking him for it. He's gonna get better, and I think, it just takes time. Some people, athleticism comes naturally. Like the kid can run, but it's, just being there supporting him, being his biggest, cheerleader, if you will, right? Making sure he goes out there, gives it his all. It's, making sure you're there to defend them, making sure you're there to discipline them, teaching them lessons. And, every parent, new parent's scared of discipline. How do I discipline the kid? This soft parenting that you see now, and I'm not trying to knock it, but, it's, like, hey, you shouldn't do that. And, I'm going to have to say, I'm going to have to put screen time on your phone because you didn't listen to me. What do we do when we screwed up when we were, like, I'm pretty sure, like, I'm not saying to smack your kid. Okay, that's not what I'm trying to imply here. But like when I got caught smoking, I got a smack in the back of the head, and then I was forced to smoke a cigarette in front of my mom.
Yeah, my dad, he smacked the shit out of me. He didn't hit me. He didn't beat me. He smacked the shit out of me. And he's like, if the smack was already open, I would make you smoke the whole thing. And he gave it to his wife.
It's definitely, it's ever evolving too. There's no perfect parenting style.
Yeah, one of my buddies, Tim, I asked him a few questions. He's originally from Jersey and he's living in Alabama now. And he's like you, but the reverse. He's got two girls. And in regards to what you said about different personalities, his oldest grew up and she loved softball, and his youngest is he said in his words, a girly girl who loves nature and science. He helped his wife Kaylee out in the garden. So it's like they're not that far apart in age, and they're completely different. So
every age, there's no, like between Maverick and Caden, there's like a 6.5 year age gap. Caden's 11, going on 12. Mav will be 5 in August. That was a decision that me and Tiff made, just based on, Caden early on had, health issues. We wanted to get him squared away before bringing another kid in. At the time, it seemed like the responsible thing to do, right? Not to take away from what Caden needed. And then, so when Caden was more, healthier and his health issues declined, we planned for Maverick. And, they get along. You can definitely tell they're brothers. They fight like brothers. That's, the siblings. That's the sibling thing, right? I mean, so if you, I don't know if you're gonna, have one, have two, but it's fun watching them interact, because naturally Caden wants to be the big brother. Like I'm, and it came really natural to him. Like, here, I want to show you this. Here, I want to show you that. As a brother should, right? And as a parent, because Caden sometimes would be, I want to show him this. It's like, dude, that's a little out of your lane. You remember the saying from the military, stay in your lane. Like, dude, you got things that you can teach them, but, there's things that, a brother teaches their brother. You're stepping in what a dad, what a parent should teach them. So that's just because I taught Caden, right? I mean, it's a natural thing. But being your first, it's going to be a whole new territory. And, I don't know the birth plan, but I can tell you when your son comes into this world, there, you're going to, when you hold him, you're going to find a new sense of being. Like, I mean, it's weird to describe, but it's like all your compass is gonna change, right? I mean, right now, like you're with Katie for a while and you got married, and so your compass is here. So you're a husband. Now you're gonna becoming a husband and father. So it's gonna, go naturally in a direct, it's gonna come. You're gonna go into a certain direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I can tell, like, when the first time I held Caden, it was like I looked down at him, and it was like the greatest feeling, knowing that you helped participate in bringing a child into this world. Because I'll give it this way, men do about 10% of the work. Then the women do the other 90 of the work, and the 10% of the work is the fun part. And then the 90% of the work is the wife crushing your hand, because she found this they found this strength that you and they didn't even know existed.
Yeah, for like 3 minutes of fun, you get 9 months of her in pain and aggravated, just for
Well,
her
I mean,
to squeeze your hand for a day and a half.
and it all, it's but like I said, it's worth it. You'll definitely enjoy the newborn stage. They don't move around a lot, so it's kind of cool. You can, leave them in the middle of the floor, knowing they're going to be in the middle of the floor when you return.
No,
And that's not like going out like, oh, I got to go to the store, and you put the baby down in the middle of the floor and it's going to be good. No, like, you got to go take a leak. Kind of leave. Let's not get this twisted. Hey, baby, I'm going to go pick a sixer up,
I left
move.
the TV on for you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Jenna Jameson's a good mom.
Yeah. Now I asked. I also asked Tim and Bruce, who you met at the wedding. What was it like first bringing them home? Like immediately after, once they were released and you could bring them home. Like diaper changes, feeding.
That,
How was.
I have to go back to like the first night home, right? So Caden was in the hospital for a total of 8 days. He was born with an infection. He had to be on IV antibiotics for a course of 8 days. But to be home, like they say, anything can make a home, right? I mean, me and Tiff have been married. We were married before we had kids, and we had a home. Bringing Caden home made that home much more complete, if that makes sense. Like, I remember just standing over his crib, just looking at him, like, he is like the most beautiful thing, here. He's so innocent, knowing you're gonna have the biggest influence on him. It was the biggest reward. Bringing him home, being a father, bringing him home, and just, it was the feeling of the family is complete, right? I mean, we wanted, me and Tiff wanted 2 kids, and I just say the first one, it was like, you know, it completed our family. You know, I'm not taking nothing away from Maverick. He completed it even more. But then, you know, diaper changes. Newborns, um, they, because you know, depending on how, you know, how you know, what you're going to feed them, if it's going to be, you know, breastfed or breast milk or formula, um, all their poops are liquid and gross, and they do not hold back. Um, like you'll just be holding them, and all of a sudden he'll just make this face, and just, and then you just hear, and you're like, oh, if you got your hand on their butt, you feel it come into the diaper. And it's things that you don't like. You thought you would never have to feel before, and then you're like, ugh, like,
That both Tim and Bruce said that it was like tar and paste all at the same time,
yes.
liquid and solid.
Some of it, yes, it can be a little sticky, a little gross. Baby wipes are your friend. And what's the shitty part is about diaper changes is the amount of diapers that come in a pack. Because as the diaper sizes get bigger, the less diapers you get, but the price does not change.
You technically you get the same amount of diaper material. It's just a bigger diaper.
Yeah, there's like, how are they priced that out? You know, whatever. You will get peed on. I 100% guarantee it. You will get peed on. During a diaper change.
For some people out there, it wouldn't be the first time, nor will it be the last.
You know, sometimes, you know, if they want a little pee-pee shower, whatever, R. Kelly it up. It's like, you know, sometimes I remember like Caden was born, we would, you know, me and Tiff would be in the shower and we're like, hey, let's throw the baby in real quick, and we'll just hold him and wash him, and you know what the sound of running water does. I guess both my kids have peed on me. It does happen as a parent. And you'll find out. I do have a friend that their firstborn had, you know, liquid poop, and somehow during a diaper change, I think old boy tried to push one out and it landed in her mouth.
Good. Is the baby's mouth or
no, her mouth? The baby shit and it got in her mouth. So you have a good possibility of getting shit on too. Not gonna lie. Be warned when you're able to give the child juice, like apple juice. Do not give 100% apple juice. Dilute the shit out of it with water. Because I learned the hard way with my niece. I watched her. I didn't know a whole lot about watching kids. I'm like, well, I can figure out. I can make sure the kid can eat. You know, change a diaper or whatnot if I had to. I didn't know about the diluting juice. And so Maddie was thirsty, and I'm like, oh, here's some apple juice. Give it to her in her cup. Like an hour later, this kid had the biggest exploding diaper. And by exploding, I mean the poop came out of the diaper. It went up her back. It went out the legs. It was disgusting. You'll experience it. Don't worry. You will. It's gonna happen.
Just hope it doesn't happen on the leather in the car.
Oh, this is there's been times where like they've had exploding diapers. I put them in the tub, clothes and all.
Yeah, just hose them off, right?
You start taking the clothes off in the tub, and you're rinsing clothes. You're rinsing the kid. Like it's you do what you gotta do.
Now, one question I had, and you touched on Caden having some medical issues, and you don't have to go too far into detail, but was there anything unexpected that came up in the first couple of days, first couple of weeks, months, whether it's, you know, any medical conditions to look out for, any habits or things to what, you know, on their body that they do, or, you know, just to keep it that you kept an eye on?
not until later on. When he, like I said, when he was born, he was born with an infection. That's all they could say, and he needed IV antibiotics. They didn't give us a diagnosis of what it was. They just said he had an infection. Croup is very common with babies, and it sounds like a barky cough, a dry barky cough. You'll find, like, to relieve that, like Caden had croup a bunch of times, and we've had to do. Do you have asthma?
When I was younger, they said that I had a slight case of it, but
Okay. Did you have to ever do like a nebulizer treatment?
I think a few times when I had like pneumonia, they had me do
Okay.
that.
Okay, so
Even as an adult, I remember it.
we keep a nebulizer in the house because both Caden and Maverick have had croup, have had, they both have asthma. So, and Caden at a young age with the croup, we've had to do like albuterol treatments, budesonide, all this inhalant stuff. And then if his croup got really bad, we had to take him to the ED, and get the epinephrine inhalant to get it to calm down, because the poor kid wasn't getting any rest because he was just coughing. Because doing the normal treatments of croup, they say a hot, get the bathroom hot, steamy. They go outside if it's cold out because the cold air helps the lungs. We did all of that, but not to be looking out for. I mean, kids, they get ear, they're prone to ear infections. Don't let your doctor tell you your kid does not have sinuses.
Everybody has sinuses.
Yep. We got told that Maverick, he was too young, he didn't have sinuses, but he had a sinus infection. Funny. How can you have something called a sinus infection if you don't have sinuses? Right? I mean, he has sinus. We told his PCP that. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, really. Like, I don't know. Maybe they went to medical school down in like Columbia. But it's just, you'll see. Like, I mean, biggest thing I was always worried about. You always want to when you put the baby to bed, is you always want to lay them on their back, right? You never want to have a baby sleep on their stomach in fear, because their lungs are not strong enough to push them up, right? So technically, theoretically, if you lay them on their stomach, they can suffocate.
Yeah, I also heard from
not to get morbid.
Oh. Yeah, I was going to say, I heard also from family members, because their neck's not strong enough, they can't lift their head up to take a breath either. So they could like go face down and suffocate,
Yep. They can't turn their head. They're not, yeah. So now, like what we always did when he was little, we always, we did tummy time, and you'll hear that term. And you'll spend a couple minutes, right, with them on their tummy, where they're working their neck muscle. You don't want to do it right when they're fresh, when they're a newborn. You want to do it, a couple months, right, a few months old, and put them on their tummy, and they get, it's like seeing the world from a new vantage point for them. But that's good for them because it builds their strength up for their core, their arms, their neck. And as soon as they start rolling over, and like you're gonna put them to sleep on their back, they're gonna roll around. Like, and that was the biggest fear in Tiff, was the one who calmed me down. I was like, man, like I don't want Caden to fall asleep on his stomach. Like, what happens if he rolls over? And it was, you just gotta kind of let it happen.
Yeah, let it roll, so to speak.
And same thing for Maverick, but it's a little easier because I'm like, Caden did it, Maverick will be fine. But still, it was a little nerve wracking. Like, oh man, I know he's bigger now, and he's able to roll over, but I'm like, I don't want him rolling on. I remember going in a couple nights, like I see him on his stomach, I'm like, nope, you're going back on your back. Like, nope, no.
He's like, I'm gonna do it again.
So, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Like, you always want to make sure when you lay them down to go to bed in their crib or bassinet or whatever you guys are gonna have set up, on their back.
Now, as the boys grew up, and you said Aiden's 11, Mav's 5.
Will be 5.
Dylan, as they were growing up, you kind of touched on it earlier. How did you differentiate, making sure, hey, no, don't do that, as opposed to, you've got to figure out on his own. You know what I mean? You tell them, don't touch the hot stove. You turn your back, they touch the hot stove anyway, and then they learn the reason why. That's what I did.
I got a perfect example. Now, you're going to want to baby-proof your apartment, right? I mean, you're going to want to get the clips for the cupboards so they can't get in. You're going to want to get the clips for the drawers so they don't pull them out on them. And that's all good, right? Yes, baby-proof it up. Get the outlet covers, so they don't stick their finger in there. Caden found out the hard way when he got one of those outlet covers off, like the little plug-in, the plastic plugs that you can block an outlet with. You've seen them. He got that out. And I'm like, you know what? Now Darwinism is going to finally happen. Right? I'm not saying take the kid out, but I've done everything minus correcting the kid of, hey, I put all the precautions there, and now he's going to find out the hard way of why that was there to begin with. And he was like 2.5, and he got zapped from an outlet. Guess who hasn't put their finger in an outlet since?
I'm going to go on a wild guess and say Caden.
We're learning.
I remember I was about Maverick's age, 4 going on 5, or just turned 5. And I distinctly remember, because the visual of it. My parents took me up to Maine to visit family on my mother's side. And they had rented this, from what I remember, this red cabin. And it had a coil stove.
Okay.
My dad was cooking something. He's like, the thing's bright friggin' red, He's like, hey, back up. This thing's hot. Don't touch the stove. He walks away. He turns around to put whatever he's cooking on the table. Me, I'm going to do it anyway. I still remember looking at my hand and seeing the rings on it. And I was screaming bloody murder. So like you said, who never touched the stove again after that?
You did.
This guy.
Yeah. It's like I said, it is fun. Like, not like, I'm not saying like your dad appreciated you. Look like he didn't like, oh man, I'm so glad he learned. What'd it take? 2nd-degree burn?
Yeah.
It's things like, I learned what hot was. I grabbed like an 80-watt light bulb. My dad told me the story, and he said I grabbed onto it, and I looked at him, I go, hot! And then I let go.
Like, what did you learn, kid?
I never grabbed a light bulb, like that again. It's fun watching them explore, right? Learn, sometimes some lessons, like the outlet thing, I know 110's not going to kill them.
But you're not going to go out of your way to make sure they touch these things either, what
can you do? Like he's playing, like they're 2, 2.5, they're going to be playing, you're gonna have to turn your back. You're gonna have to go to the bathroom or something. It's gonna, they're gonna get into something, and that's the thing. Like they're gonna, when they start moving, baby gates, baby gates. If you got stairs, baby gates.
Again, this is a story that both my parents told me. That something I did in our old house in Staten Island. I was still in a walker, or one of those old walkers. So we must have just moved into that house. But when you come in the side gate where the yard was, when you come in the door, you could either take the stairs down to the basement or a step up into the kitchen.
Okay.
Well, everybody's in the kitchen, and here I am running around in this walker, and I beeline through the kitchen, bounce off the fridge. My dad had just came in the door. I saw the open door.
You booked it.
I booked it and went flying down a flight of stairs in a walker. They both said they watched me go 5-second hang time and bounce the entire way down. I was fine. They said I was even laughing. They're like, okay, never again.
Like you're gonna see too, like with that, like I have a similar story. I was like 4 or 5, and it involved like a dirt bike. Um, both my kids have fallen down the stairs. Turned out fine. Besides, bump on the noggin, a bruise on a leg. I mean, and that's another thing. Boys, kids from a certain age until they like stop playing outside are gonna have bruises on them. It just comes with the territory of being a kid. You're gonna want your kid to have a straight knee, right? I mean, it's part of growing up. It really is, watching them play, like when their imagination starts going wild and you watch them play, like it brings back memories of like how you played or how I played. It's awesome. It makes you, definitely makes me smile, watching them play. Like, if they're smiling, you should be smiling. If they're not smiling, you got to make them smile. Like it's,
I'll count my last 2 questions here. It could be one question, but it's a similar question. Throughout the years, and not just when you brought them home immediately after birth. One, how did you make sure you were doing everything you could to take care of Tiffany, your wife? Not just immediately following coming back from the hospital, but in the years after up until this point with both your sons. And also part 2 of that question is, how do you take care of yourself?
That's
physically and mentally, spiritually, and the whole 9 yards.
That it takes a team to raise a kid, right? I mean, that's what they say. I mean, I'm not, no disrespect to single dads or single moms raising their kid on their own, but it comes a hell of a lot easier when you got your tag team partner. But there's some days, Tiff can vouch when, you guys do the mom episode. If you guys go to, that, hey, tag, you're it, right? And mama needs a break, right? So, like send her out, like, hey, go hang out with your friends, go do something, right? And you should want to give your significant other that time, right? That's gonna make and vice versa. But it's natural that the mom, you're gonna see, like, you're gonna say, oh, we're gonna do 50-50, because I'm pretty sure I said it too. Mama, and I'm not taking away nothing from dads, I'm not, but mama's gonna pick up a lot, and you're gonna see it, and you're gonna be like, damn, what can I do to make sure that you're good? So it's like, if mama wants a nap, dad, you're up. Mama wants to go get her nails done, dad, you're up, right? I mean, it's, you got to take care of yourself. Like, it's, being a parent is hard enough, and you're going to put your kids' needs above your own 100%. But in order to take care and raise a kid, you got to make sure you're good too, right? And then we're going into your mental health, right? So you got to make sure you're good. And and it's finding the new balance. Right now, you have a work-life balance of being married. Well, that's going to change when this kid comes into the world. Now you got to find a new balance, because now you got work and life, and now you got a son to think about, a family, right? So it's very important to take care of you. Like, I know, like, kids are frustrating. Um, you'll find out when they get older. And some days you're I'm like, I can't wait to go to work. I can't wait for the kid to go to school. School's problem for a few hours. I want, get some reprieve. And you shouldn't feel guilty saying something like that, because you matter and how you feel, right? And you're not a bad dad or a bad mom because occasionally you want to be selfish. You want to think of yourself, because in turn, if you're taking care of yourself, you're going to be better suited to take care of the kid, take care of your wife. If you're not all there, you're cheating. Not only you're cheating yourself, but you're cheating them, because they're not getting all of you, if that makes sense.
Oh, it definitely makes sense. That's why I wanted to ask the question. Like, at some point, of course, you got to be attentive to your wife, especially following uh, the hospital stay and the birth. But it's I'm not even a father yet, and I know I've seen not just my dad and uncles and cousins, and that they have, whether it's one night a month where they play cards with the boys, or they go out with their brother for dinner. They got
Right.
to have, and same
Right.
thing with the wife. Like, she has to have times with her family, or go out with the girls' night. And something as simple as playing cards or bowling, or
You'd
getting
be
her nails done or something.
you'd be surprised what a couple hours away will do. Like, wait till your son is old enough to where they want to do a sleepover at their friend's house. You're gonna feel like, oh man, you and Katie are gonna be talking like, oh man, we're gonna have the greatest time. No kid, like, you can finally, like, here's another thing. Like, I don't want to become all of a sudden get this rated R, but you'll find out like loud
Tickets to like,
sex will
wow,
go
wow.
away. Loud sex will go away when you have a kid.
Until they're at the friend's house sleeping over.
Until, and then you're gonna be all wild, right? And then you get it all out, and then you're like, I'm kind of bored.
And then you're
You
asleep
want
by
you
8.
want you want your kid back. You're like, what do we do?
We
Like,
just want him back. We don't want to know.
you had the best 15, 20 minutes or whatever loud sex that you couldn't have for like 5 or 8, 9 years.
15 minutes, that's awfully generous.
Whatever. I mean, maybe I'm going about a country average. But that's but like, I've been like, man, what do we, like, we start talking about, like, oh man, we'd probably be doing this with the kids if we had them here. Well, the whole point of having them have a sleepover or having to go somewhere is to have time together, and you think about your fucking kids. And it's natural, and you shouldn't feel guilty that you are. It's the parental instinct, right? And maybe I'm making light of the situation, maybe making it a little comical, but you'll see. Well,
Now,
but
oh, go ahead.
no, that's all I had. Just don't worry. Oh, make sure to do another suggestion when they're newborn. If they fall asleep, like if you got to look a little swing or whatever, if they fall asleep in the living room, don't stop doing the normal things. Like if Katie wants to vacuum the floors or do the dishes, do them as normal. Like those noises should be natural to the kid. Caden could sleep through a vacuuming. So
Now, at
take
first,
it.
did
Take
it bother
advantage.
him, or did he just get used to it right off the bat?
We tried it when he was asleep, and he didn't wake. He didn't wake up. So
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
no, he just and that's the stuff like they got to get used to. So
Now, to finish this off, kind of like the humorous question out of all this. I don't know if you saw the name that I picked for myself.
I did.
90s sitcom dad expectations. Katie had sent me a meme not too long ago, and it was a bandit from Bluey.
Yep.
And it said, "No matter how hard you try, you'll never be as good of a dad as him." So, besides your immediate family, your dad, uncles, cousins, or whatever, right? Because those, hopefully, any soon-to-be father or man has good, solid other men to look up to when it comes to fatherhood and husbandhood. But out of fictional TV dad, to be 80s shows, 90s shows, today's shows, whatever, that you watch that you're like, I wish I was like that. Could be one guy, it could be five guys. Not
It would
surprised.
have. It would have to be John Goodman from Roseanne, Dan Connor. And I just say that with realism because that was like as close to family that you had. Is that I could I guess I could relate to. Your lower middle class. He was a general laborer. But he did anything and everything for his kids. Took risks. Sometimes they paid off, sometimes they didn't. But I would, I could go comical, be like, El Bundy, but that was a little far fetched of how not of a dad he was until you until he had to stand up for his family. Other than that, it was just all toilet humor. But I would have to go Dan Connor.
Yeah, as I kind of thought about it too. Like, and I have like four examples, and uh, Dan Connor was definitely one of them. You know, and of course, I love my father, and he'll always be like, okay, this is kind of like a standard. But Dan Connor, Tim the Tool Man, for the simple fact that I'm already kind of a goofy guy, and where Dan Connor is, like you said, the do anything he can, take risks, all about his family and his kids. Tim Allen on Home Improvement, kind of the same way, but he was also funny and goofy, and he had passion, you know.
Right.
And then Carl Winslow, again, kind of
Family Matters.
the black version of my dad. My dad was a New York cop. He was a cop. Minus the race difference, I saw the connection. And it kind of the same way with, Tim and uh, Dan Connor. Good man, kind of goofy sometimes, but he showed the love. And last, I still see the clips on Facebook. Uncle Phil,
Uncle Phil.
friggin' Uncle Phil. Like, I don't care who you are, that man was friggin' gold. You
He
know,
was, stepping up to raise his nephew. You know,
He was just a good man, you know. Like, so minus the immediate family, watching sitcoms, especially in the 80s and 90s, where I want to be like Dan Conley.
Eh,
With that said, I know it looks like you just got to work.
I did. I'm staring at it right now.
Is there anything you would like to add, follow up, final thoughts? Do not do.
You're gonna find yourself being somewhat hypocritical, being a parent, because you got, like you got caught smoking, and if you smoke now, and then if your kid gets caught smoking, it's like you're gonna be caught, like because I smoke and all that. Um, like at a young, I mean, it's your life, right? Because you could smoke if you want, because you're 40 years old or 41, your life. But like I first had my cigarette, like I think I was like 12 or 13, and they made it a point to make sure that, hey, they let me know it was wrong. And I looked, I'm like, Mom, but you smoke. And they're like, well, I'm an adult. I'm telling you I shouldn't be, but you shouldn't smoke because of this, this, and this, and kind of went over a lesson about health, right? So that's one thing, like that you're gonna find yourself like in a position where you may sound hypocritical. And smoking was the easiest one that kind of think about, because at one point I did smoke too, and it's gonna come across, right? I'm not, not no disrespect to you or any other dad that smokes out there, but when you catch your kid doing something, you gotta, like, man, you were 9 times out of 10 you got caught doing the same exact thing.
Yeah, and I'm at that age where even at work, I go, I'm 41, about to have my first kid. And even at work, I see kids coming in 14, 15, 16 years old. They're with their friends, they're having some fun, whether some of them are bigger shitheads than others, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but before I go too crazy, I try to be like, hey guys, can we not? Because I know when I was 16, and I was one of the good, I'd like to think I was one of the good kids. Uh, were they doing anything different than what I was doing at 16? You know what I mean? Now, they're not my kids to discipline,
But were you doing anything different? Like when my mom found my porn collection, there wasn't like porn, there wasn't Pornhub or anything like that back when I was like 14 or 15. We had magazines. Like, sure, you could try to download something from Kazaa and give your computer fucking AIDS. But the kids are at such technological advantage for that, and that I guess I'll end it with that.
No, even our parents, they had to go when they were our age, and we were just hitting puberty or looking at porn or whatever. They had to go out of their way. The biggest porn my parents had when they were our age back then as a kid was the Sears lingerie catalog. Now at 16, like what, 40 years later, we had Hey Pink Pussies Volume 12. Like,
all holes filled with cum. I hope my wife doesn't watch this episode.
I hope she does. What was the list from Clerks that Randall was going reading up?
Men Alone 2, the KY connection.
All holes full of first King Cub, like Jesus Christ, dude, what are you watching over there? But yeah, even now, as I'm older, an older first-time father, Um, you
It's
know,
a journey. It's a journey, and it's gonna fly by. So I don't want to sound corny, but I'll take the words from Kenny Chesney. Don't blink.
yeah.
Don't blink. Treasure it.
I mean, shit, still seems like yesterday that we found out Katie was pregnant. And now it's like, okay, 4 months are already gone, 5 months are already gone. You know what I mean? Like we're looking at September, and it's like, okay, it's gonna be May, so May, June, July, August, like damn. Before we know it, the little shit goblin's gonna be here, and Benny Lucky likes baseball. It doesn't root for the Red Sox. That's all I could hope for.
Oh, you're gonna get puked on too.
Oh, yeah.
So
I'm already prepared for that. I'm not a fan of puke, so I'm already mentally preparing myself.
yep. So be prepared for that. But thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
And feel free to, if you have any ideas, leave a comment on the video when you see it. Anybody that does watch this, if you are a father, if you have any other tips, or not just myself, but for anybody else, feel free to leave a comment. I
Yep.
would appreciate not just make sure you're watching, but experience matters and is valued. So so I'll let you get to work. And again, thank you for coming again. And until next time,
Till next time. Thank you.
adios.